Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. My name is Patricia. I'm a UX UI designer focusing on XR and Web3 technology, so nice that you are here. On YouTube I usually share videos about design, the future, productivity and all those kind of things. And now I'm going to do a little book review of the book from this month, UX Book Club. Every one of you who is following me on Instagram knows that I started a book club in the year 2022, so this year, to motivate each other, the whole community, to read a little bit more, share the learnings and really get the most out of the book. So the rules are pretty simple. 1 month, 1 book, read it, share learnings on the way, and I'm going to share my learnings and my insights about the book of the month in a video on YouTube or in a live stream. So the first book was Atomic Habits. You can find the summary in my Instagram account. I made a live stream and I shared this in Insta TV. So and this time I ask you guys how you want to see the next summary, and you ask for a YouTube video. So The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns is a book everyone is who's either working with like pitching ideas or working as a freelance designer or start their own business. Should definitely read. A great recommendation, awesome book. So before we get started, I can already say my rating is definitely a 5 of 5 stars. It's a great business book with lots and lots of insights. And this book tells how creative companies, agencies or freelancers can win business by being expert consultants instead of pitching and spending a lot of time and money on writing proposals. It also tells how to walk clients through the sales process and how to charge more and really provide others valuable advice. He shared it in 12 proclamations, so 12 really easy to understand rules and guidelines, and I'm going to talk you through them. So the writing is intelligent, assured, professional and sophisticated, and I really like the 12 proclamations, very easy to understand, and it contains a really good summary. We will see ourselves as professional predictioners who bring real solutions to our client business problem. Really great quote. So we will prioritize respect others' money, for only when we are regarded as experts will be paid the money we deserve. So my favorite way to look at sales is as an expert practitioner who determines a fit rather than a persuader. However, I feel that the proclamations are easier to follow for established firms than for those who have not yet built up a really strong reputation. I'm going to share some quotes of the book, so a few things that I marked and I underlined in this book. Are you ready? I would say let's go. So let's start with the 12 proclamations. Number 1, we will specialize. So let's start with a quote. Expertise is the only valid basis for differentiation ourselves from the competition. Not personality, not process, not price. So when the client has very few alternatives to our expertise, then we can dictate pricing. We can set the terms of the engagement and we can take control. How does it look like? Having a sales advantage. So being an expert in a very specific field. So you are able to qualify clients. By rejecting clients who don't fit the way you work, you create opportunities for those who do. And also having a premium price. As with doctors who specialize, patients come to us or come to the doctors because they know what they're special for, right? So they do that. They don't do that because they're cheap or something like that, right? Number 2, we will replace presentations with conversations. Especially as creative people, we think that our work speaks for itself. So we put a lot of work in our portfolio and share it on Behance or Dribbble or Instagram. But what we tend to forget is that although it's great to show the past and our experiences, the future might be different. So to learn what we need for the future and for our future clients, there's not just one way, which is talking. So we need to talk, we need to have conversations. We need to ask questions and really start a dialogue before we present any presentations or any proposals. This is what he says. So he says, presentations like pitch is a word that we will leave behind as we see conversations and collaborations in their place. So Blair Enns shares a few quick tips on these topics. So first is strategy first. We will not develop or share with the client any kind of creative thing before diagnosing the problem and really prescribing and agreeing on a strategy. Then continuous reference to strategy. So immediately prior to presenting any creative idea, we will review the agreed upon strategy with the client. So the freedom to execute. We welcome the client's input on the strategy, but in exchange we ask him to let us experiment with several ways to implement it. Fewer options of better quality. So when presenting creative options, we will limit them to as few as possible. There is an inverse correlation between the quantity of creative options we present to the clients and the confidence we have in their quality. So when we present options, we will recognize our responsibility to really recommend one over the other. The firm presents its work only to our client companies. So if our diagnostic findings, strategic recommendations, or even like creating creative solutions are presented to anyone in our client companies, it will be our firm that does so. So presentations in which one part tries to convince the other to hire it definitely doesn't make sense. So selling, convincing, and persuading are not our objectives. So this is simply a means of determining in the fit it's good enough to justify a next step. So during the presentation, it is never your job to convince the client to hire you. Our objective is to position ourselves as the expert practitioner. So, and this is very important that this really sticks in the mind of the prospective client. It is important that we establish fit to see if our expertise matches the client needs. Very important. Number 3, we will diagnose before we prescribe any solution. So fully diagnose the client's issue. This means not thinking about solutions before we understand the problem. Like, you probably all know that from your ex. This one is difficult, right? Because designers are trained to look everywhere for problems and then think about solutions, make decisions very quickly. And often it is merely a first impression. It doesn't solve the problem that the client really has. So Blair Enns shared 4 phrases in client engagement. First is the diagnose problem and the opportunity. Number 2 is prescribe a therapy. Number 3 is apply therapy, and number 4 is reapply therapy if necessary. He says, a good client will begin to relinquish control once he has the confidence that the expert practitioner knows more than he does, or even has the tool to learn more, right? So formalize diagnostic processes such as, any kind of tools, for example, right? So number 4, we will rethink what it means to sell. So generally there are 2 basic functions in a creative business. That is, really making things and selling things. So 3 selling steps based on, clients' place in the buying cycle. First is help the unaware. Second, inspire the interested. And 3 is reassure those who have formed interest, right? So the very best salesperson are respectful. They are selective facilitators of change. They really help people to move forward to solve their problems and capitalize on their opportunities. The rest really talk people into things, and this is what we don't want and what doesn't really bring you further. So take the long road of helping future clients over a longer time to really see that perhaps they do have a problem, and do this primarily through leadership. Really think about your area of expertise and support them. The first thing we need to do is to really rethink what selling is. It is not about bragging or convincing the clients to hire you, probably a common designer's assumptions, but rather really determining a fit between the client's needs and your skills, your supply, what you can offer. and replace the art of persuasion with facilitation. And to achieve it, we should help the unaware. You know, it is our job not to hate, but to really educate, inspire the interested, you know, like really fan the small spark of interest into a flame, like motivate them. And then reassure those who have formed intent, build relationships, and evaluate their trust. So closing is all about reassuring. So when a prospect asks for a written proposal containing 3 recommendations, his primary motivation is fear of making a mistake. So find other ways to offer reassurance, such as face engagement, you know, like pilot projects, money back guarantees, and even case studies. Number 5, the 4 priorities of winning new business. So Blair Enns shared 4 little tips on how to win a business. Number 1 is win without pitching. So secure the business before it gets to a defined competitive selection process. Number 2, derail the pitch. Get the client to put his process aside and take an alternative first steps with you, right? And number 3, gain the inside track. Participate in the prospect's process, but constantly go through whether prospect is willing to treat you differently and grant the outside track, you know, like inside information or access to hard to reach decision makers. Number 4 is walk away. Like good prospective clients who really recognize and value our expertise will grant us one of the above. If a prospect won't, walk away. You don't want to work with these clients. Number 6, we will do with words what we used to do with papers. Let's start with a quote again. So he says, we are not trying to talk the client into hiring us, and where we invite him to say no early and often. If the prospect isn't committed to a future date or event, then the written proposal is not the tool to help, really get this forward. If the engagement has not yet moved from his wish list to his to-do list, then it is still inspiration he seeks. And we are better off in, these cases exploring previous work, maybe like work examples or any inspiration, examining with him, competitors' work or other best practices from further afield. Sometimes these explorations include a small paid discovery engagement, like a discovery sprint or a discovery workshop. Sometimes they are merely part of the whole conversation in the buying cycle. But we do not begin to solve our clients' problems before we are engaged, and I think this is pretty important. Compare that to other industries. Doctors charge for MRI, accountants charge for audits, lawyers charge for discovery. And we also charge for our diagnosis as designers. So it works for us the same way. Like our clients pay us to write proposals. We are like a phase sale that begins with a diagnosis. And of course, this needs to be paid. Number 7, we will be selective. So he says, if we are to build a lucrative expert firm, then we must regain this balance of a small number of really high quality clients. So once regained, we must accept that our client base will turn over, and we must understand that this is totally normal and totally healthy. So instead of chasing every lead and closing every possible deal, we should focus more on really choosing clients with the perfect fit. So we do not lose clients by saying no, but we gain the opportunity to be closer to the right ones. So we want to develop the habit of putting on the table for early discussions, right? So these or any other concerns we might have, the client might have, is something that we should raise very early on. So raise the objections first. Instead of waiting to hear, you seem expensive, you might say, I'm a little concerned about the ability an organization of your size has to afford us. You can always ask that and really start the conversation. Number 8, we will build expertise. So we already talked about building expertise. Great task for you now. Think about what your area of expertise can be, and after deciding your niche in the industry and really articulating your claim of expertise in the specific area, we work to quickly add proof to our claim. So adapt a really growth mindset. And that continuous learning is mandatory, is necessary. You need to do that, especially right now. We are living in the information age. So there are always new skills. So the skills you must process or acquire in order to succeed in a differentiated creative enterprise support, right? So one is you need to do some consulting, so really problem solving, advising, leading clients through engagement. Then number 2 is really writing. That's blog, newsletters, published articles, any kind of thought papers, books, etc. And number 3 is, like creative work, which could be like your personal work where you really explore. Number 9, we will not solve problems before we are paid. So our level of expertise, our ideas and solutions. If we do not value our thinking, the client will not. So how can we diagnose and prescribe for 3, even 1 minute, and then later ask for hundreds or even thousands of dollars for similar thinking? There is a line that separates providing our ability to solve the client's problems from actually solving his problem. We shall not be lured into, crossing over this line before we are paid. So state with really polite conversations, it is our policy to not begin to solve our client's problems before we are engaged. Makes sense, right? So we should not really progress so far as to share our diagnosis with the client before we are hired and appropriately paid. So number 10, we will address issues of money early. He says in his book, so if we were to accept even half of the project work that comes to us, then we would find ourselves aimlessly building a really tactical firm burdened with too many small clients and projects with the with a lot of challenges and also really poorer financial reward and less fulfillment. So a fresh new project is like a breath of fresh air for builders, for makers, for creatives. We all know that. It's an opportunity to practice our crafts and improve our skills and thus really execute it. However, I tend to discuss it without talking about money, right? So rule of money. Those who cannot discuss money cannot be doers. So new project is awesome, but the money is very important as well. So when you talk about pricing with creatives, same for me, same for I think all creatives, it tend to be a little bit uncomfortable, right? Maybe it's even stressful, and it's a cultural thing. We have become used to that idea that talking about money is considered impolite, especially with family, friends, or co-workers or friends who want to have an UX review for free. So it doesn't matter whether you're employed or not. You will at some point have to negotiate a raise. Being in business means you cannot avoid the subject of money. Never. So the rule of money. Those who cannot talk about it do not make it. Pretty simple. So number 11. We will refuse to work at a loss. So many of us believe we are paid for the end result. So the design deliverable, the layout, the ready to implement design or, ready to go to printing. However, our work actually began the moment we thought about our clients' problems, right? So profit margins are the highest in the first 2 phases, right? The diagnosis and the prescribe. And then in the last 2, apply and reapply. So our thinking is the value added differentiator in the first 2 phases. So the service we provide is the process that enables good work. As a result, they hired us, right? So the design provided is just a souvenir. Number 12, we will charge more. Pretty simple. So he says to our clients, the smallest invoices are the most annoying. So charging more, we will create more time to think on behalf of our clients. And we will eliminate the need to invoice for any kind of small changes and other surprises, right? Firms like ours, he says, are not fired over the large invoices for strategic work. They are fired over the small invoices for tactical work. It is the change orders that creates the resentment and that builds until the relationship snaps. So always think about, are we charging accordingly to the time spent, scope and value to really price the upfront work in the right way, that really fits to the creative deliverable, and big round numbers that end in zeros and thus clearly imply that our pricing for these services has little to do with the hours it takes to deliver them. For the reapplication work that follows, You're free to charge for the hour, he says. Pretty interesting. So we went through all the 12 sections. What do you think? What was your biggest takeaway? Any questions, anything you want to share, feel free to do that in the comments. I'm really looking forward to hear your thoughts about the book. And if you like the UX book club, let me know. I'm going to share the next book in my Instagram stories pretty soon, so make sure to check that out and say hello on Instagram or on any other socials. I love to connect, say hello, and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.